As you can probably hear from the in-game audio, they did actually get loaded. So let's jump into it here. We'll kill the Monster Cat music and start taking a look at the bans. As both teams have made it through the first ban phase. With Team Linkens getting rid of the jungly roamy type heroes, getting rid of Chen and Bounty Hunter, and Abercrombie and Lich getting rid of Abaddon and OD. OD gaining in popularity right now as a very potent mid laner, and Abaddon just sitting on top of the hub circuit right now in terms of win rate.
5 seconds
I think he
remaining.
is number 2 overall in win rate. Omni Knight is number 1 at about 58.5%, and Abaddon is somewhere in the top 5, I know, but I think he's averaging around 56% win rate. So, a very strong hero in this current meta, and it's just that immortality that he has through his ultimate and his ability to transition between kind of that support role and a core role. He can shield and heal himself and allies. He can use that heal as a nuke as he chases folks down. He's a very versatile hero. Speaking of immortality, another hero that's very popular at all times in the pro and amateur circuit alike is the Dazzle, thanks in large part to this spell right here, Shallow Grave, which reads, I actually haven't read through most of the subtext on a lot of these spells, just because I've been playing Dota for 10 years or so now. But
5 seconds remaining.
Reading through it, it says an ally blessed with Shallow Grave, no matter how close to death, cannot die while under its protection. Which is false, actually, because Shallow Grave can be bursted down by axe. So it's something for Team Linkens to think about there. If they want to get someone who can dunk through that Shallow Grave, they'll have that tool in their lineup.
Radiant team pick.
Getting a Twitch chatter in the stream here by the name of Dr. Dread Rules, talking a little smack about Team Linkens right out the gate. Dr. Dread coming from the Cap team, which, for those of you who follow the Darmin cast regularly, know that's one of the teams I cast with some regularity. They actually versed up against Team Linkens in the Winter Classic, I believe, in mid to late December. And supposedly the Kick-Ass Patrol squad walked away with the win there. But as the Dota load screens often say, every defeat is just practice for your next victory, or something like that. And we'll see if Team Linkens used that loss to better themselves and prepare for the true challenger that they're facing off against today in the form of Aberzombie and Lich. Taking a look at Team Linkens' picks here, they have Disruptor and Lifestealer, which I feel is a pretty strong combination. You have a lot of tempo control for the teamfight mechanics in the form of Disruptor. You also have Lifestealer's ability to BKB through any potential nukes that are in play, as well as his open wounds, which allows for a slowing mechanic. So they're going to have a lot of chasing and catching potential, but that doesn't seem to bother Aberzombie and Lich, and they actually pick a Void into it, who has received what I believe to be a big nerf to him initially in 686 when the patch first hit, but they've tweaked him around here over the past 3 and 4 subsequent mini patches in A, B, C, and D, and they retooled Time Walk so the range is a little bit longer than it used to be. But still, that's a Time Walk and an escape mechanism that the Disruptor is going to be able to negate pretty effectively with Glimpse. You can see here cast range for Glimpse scales up to 1800, and Time Walk scales to exactly 625, and that's it. So even at
10
its
seconds
minimum
remaining.
range, Glimpse is pretty much equal to
5
that.
seconds
As soon as he
remaining.
gets his second and third point into it,
Windranger
even
at
from
your
quite a ways
service.
out, he'll be able to get Faceless
Radiant
Void
team pick.
back into the thick of things with Lifestealer hopefully there to either catch him with an open wounds, or now that Windranger's made it onto the field, a shackle shot. So this game I feel is going to be very dependent on positioning. If
10
Disruptor's
seconds
able
remaining.
to stay outside of the Chronosphere cast by
5
Faceless
seconds
Void,
remaining.
he'll be able to control things quite a bit by tossing down a Kinetic Field and Static Storm inside of that
Reserve
Void,
time.
which is going to equally damage Faceless Void as the Chronosphere is going to damage anyone inside of it. He'll also be able to glimpse people into and out of the Chrono as needed. Some additional bans coming out from both teams. Team Linkens getting rid of the Witch Doctor and the Invoker. Invoker, one of the most popular mid heroes here as of late, but he did receive a nerf, about a week or two ago,
Dire team
when they released 686D in the form of they dropped his base agility down from either the low 20s, somewhere between 22 and 24, I think is what his base was. I think it was 22. Down to 14, so negating it by about a third. So with that mid ban being taken out of the lineup, Aber Zombie and Lich
10 seconds
pick up
remaining.
Tinker instead, as
5
they
seconds
opted
remaining.
to ban out the Viper in preparation for that pickup. Viper, one of the
Reserve time.
tankiest mid heroes that's in favor right now, in my opinion, and does help negate quite a bit of the damage coming out from Tinker in the form of negating the March of the
Radiant
Machines
team
and the
pick.
missile damage that would be tossed out on
Dire
as well.
team ban.
It's also just annoying to play up against as a Tinker, since every single machine in your March of the Machines re-triggers that poison effect that Viper has, so
10 seconds remaining.
it can be quite annoying. And now the true hard carries are coming out onto the field
5
here.
seconds
You have
remaining.
Juggernaut from Team Linkens and Terrorblade being played by
Reserve
Abercrombie
time.
and Lich.
I should have seen that one coming.
Radiant team ban.
Juggernaut has one of the highest pick rates right now in amateur Dota. Terrorblade not so much. He is a bit more farm dependent and a bit slower, and I think
10 seconds
that's how
remaining.
this game is going to be played out. Team Linkens have
Dire
a
team
bit
pick.
more of the earlier push, earlier teamfight mechanics, especially if Lifestealer opts to infest some of those ancient black dragons and push down towers early. Juggernaut needs a few items to get online, but I feel the longer he waits, the more of a nuisance the Abercrombie and Zich line. Yeah, their name's gonna
10
screw me up.
seconds remaining.
The AZL team. That's their name for today. AZL.
Radiant team pick.
So you got Linkens versus AZL, and the AZL lineup, the later it goes, is going to have the Terrorblade and the Tinker. So Terrorblade's going to be able to just tank all of the incoming damage from Team Linkens eventually, while Tinker does Tinker things and teleports around the map. As always, you expect for him to go
10
with
seconds
an
remaining.
early boot to travel, most likely a blink dagger, and then
5
he'll have
seconds remaining.
two choices to either give himself some early nuke damage in the form of
Reserve
a Dagon
time.
and a Hex and try to control Team Linkens, or if he opts to go full push and gets things like a Necronomicon, and even still a Scythe of Ice is a good pickup in that format. And speaking of heroes with top win rates, it's the Omni-Knight pickup in the 5th slot. So right now, Team Linkens is looking like they're going to have a difficult laning phase here. They have the Lifestealer, who I presume is going to be heading into the jungle, which is going to
Prepare for
deprive
battle.
one of the lanes that extra manpower and assistance that can be critical in determining the laning phase of a game and ultimately the game in its entirety. Darmin cast overlays are poking through here a little bit, so got Thor giving a shout out to Russians everywhere. MYJY giving me a shout out for showing up last minute. I appreciate it. But immediately taken away from Dabbles. Well, let's go through introductions then, shall we? Over on the side of Team Linkens, you have MYJY playing the Lifestealer.
30 seconds to battle.
Hanging out in the jungle here is Dabbles playing the Disruptor. Playing the Wind Ranger, you have Pixie. Dr. Dread giving a shout out to Wind Rangers. Playing the Juggernaut, hanging out with the rest of his team up here in the high ground, making sure they secure this top rune, is going to be Syntax playing the Juggernaut. And since he retracted the Darmin shout out, there's whoever this dirty offlaner is. I don't even know. He gets no announcement. Boo that man. Meanwhile, on the Radiant side of the map, oh, you have some warding and dewarding going on in the middle lane already, so. Didn't quite see if they got... It looks like it must have been just a sentry ward for a sentry ward, because both of the Radiant Observer wards are still in the map here. So, as I was saying, heading back into introductions here. You have Matt Cthulhu playing the Omni Knight in the bottom lane here, protecting their hard carry, who is Ivango, playing the Terrorblade and rocking the Terrorblade Arcana. So, playing it in style for now. Ostentatiously, and yes, I said that word correctly. So, I'm giving myself props for that one. We'll be playing the Dazzle, also hanging out here in the bottom safe lane, protecting their Terrorblade. Apparently there's a storm going on somewhere, but that's not the case here. Just have a disconnect from the Wind Ranger. So hopefully she'll be back momentarily. Hanging out in the top lane, posing for his photo here, with all of his cosmetics perfectly in place and aligned, is Morphine playing the Faceless Void, making his staff just kind of hover there. Dr. Dread suggesting that Wind Ranger is the true hard carry, and that is not the case. No, sir, Wind Ranger is not a true hard carry. She is a core. She can start to do some pretty significant damage to towers through the mid-game lineup and everything once she gets like her Aghanim Scepter and like a secondary item, either Daedalus, Mjolnir, whatever she wants to, or a Desolator even, to help drop down towers very fast underneath the right click of her focus fire. Oh, and last but not least, I almost missed one introduction here. One important introduction. There was one introduction that was omitted, but in the mid lane playing the Tinker is King Crusher 17. Locked and loaded. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know how the secret shop guy got selected there. I was just trying to line up the Tinker guns. See if you can see Wind Ranger from across the river here. And just ever so barely. And of course, Dota wouldn't be Dota without a long pause to start off the game, especially in North America. For those of you who tuned into the Pro Dota Canada Cup, I think it was, there was Llama Down Under and one or two other people casting it throughout the day, and they were discussing how pretty much every North American game right now in the pro circuit has a mandatory pause for a minute or two at the very start, and there's mixed suspicions as to why that is. The casters don't seem to quite know, but they think it's a combination of either teams want to strategize for about 45 minutes. 45 minutes. God, that would make for horrible games. But 4 to 5 minutes at the start to figure out what their laning setups are going to be, what their build strategies are going to be, etc. And the other assumption is that it's because teams walk away all the time from the draft screen. Anybody who's not the captain just walks away, goes to get a drink, hit the bathroom, whatever the case may be. So by the time the game starts, they're actually no longer at their computer. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves in pub Dota, is players who queue up, accept the queue, join the game, and then don't pick for the first 2 minutes, and then come back and go, sorry, I was away. It's like, how can you queue for a game, accept it, and then go, I'm done with this, and walk away? Once you hit that accept button, aren't you sitting at the computer? Aren't you ready to go? But anyway, that's my rant. But getting off my soapbox here, we'll take a look at the effigies, because we've got to kill some time somehow here. And you have the broken helmet and broken cosmetics. That looks pretty cool, actually. It looks like his armor is wielding the lance while his actual arm is just kind of sitting there by his side. But Uncle Chen wants you. Let's see if Medusa's broken at all. No, Medusa's looking decent. Looking sexy. Looking like she is commanding people to stop. And then Tiny rocking the Crimson Quarry set. But none of those heroes are in the game currently. Chen was banned out. Medusa and Tiny just didn't see picks. Want to hear foul language? 4 words. Octarine Core Drow Ranger. Over on the dire side of the map, let's see if they got any cool effigies. This one's pretty sweet. I like this. The Kunkka with the Shadow Blade weapon. And the big puffy coat and everything, but of course the Kunkka is nowhere in there. Oh, there he is. You can kind of see him on the other side. From this side, it's just nothing. You have floating armor. You kind of see him hanging out there, but I like the invisible Kunkka set. They're saying that Pixie is having difficulties reconnecting to the game here, so server is not responding. They had this quite a bit with some of the North American teams yesterday when they were doing Dota patchwork, of course, at like 6 p.m. Central Time. And of course, there's another update going on right now. So teams are calling a mulligan, calling a do-over, and dropping out. So I'm going to do the same. I will throw on some music for a minute or two here while the teams remake, and hopefully we get back into the game as quickly as possible here. So apologies on behalf of Ice Frog for constantly updating Dota in the middle of the busiest playtimes of the day. Stay tuned, and we will get you back started here with Game 1 ASAP. Thanks. That's one of my biggest pet peeves of Dota. Alrighty, so we are back for the first. I'll call it the first. It's really the, what I think, third game that they've tried to make, but the first game that's going to be successful between Aberzombie and Lich versus Team Linkens. There were some connectivity issues, some Dota patch issues, all sorts of nonsense. And
30 seconds to battle.
The game's now been remade. They're going to control the runes. They're doing exactly what they did in the first 45 seconds here of game 1. So nothing new to report as a caster. The runes are going to go 1-1 here. And Faceless Void hoping to get a little better of a creep block this go around.
Every coin
Smart
helps.
money.
So, the game is underway. Going through just quick introductions here once again. You have Syntax playing the Juggernaut in the top lane. You have Thorg playing the Disruptor, assisting in the top lane. Hanging out back here, waiting for the creep wave, is MYJY, who's going to be playing the Lifestealer, heading into the jungle. Pixie playing the Wind Ranger in the middle lane. And in the bot lane, you have Dabbles playing the Darkseer. All of the lanes the same. You have Ostentatiously playing the Dazzle on the side of Aberzombie and Lich, along with Matt Cathan. Not quite sure how to pronounce that one, so apologies if I'm butchering it. Ivan Go playing the Terrorblade. And still rocking that sexy Arcana. King Crusher 17 playing Tinker in the mid lane. And Morphine playing the Faceless Void in the top lane, eating quite a bit of damage here from the Disruptor as he put his first point into Thunderstrike. But other than that, both teams just kind of getting started here for the first minute and a half into the first game. You have Pixie and King Crusher going back and forth, exchanging some damage there. And Wind Ranger's throwing out the power shot, so both heroes sitting below 300 HP. And they're in the danger zone. Tinker opting to max out lasers first, along with March of the Machine, so it looks like he's going to be doing kind of a slow push build. Wanting to max out laser for its damage and miss potential, but March of Machines as the backup. If he was going for a true mobile ganker lineup, you'd expect to see the laser into the heat-seeking missiles, but I don't think he's actually cast March of the Machines yet, and so Pixie doesn't know what he's putting those points into. The 2-minute runes spawn, and it's chase here as Pixie and King Crush both head for the top rune, and it's going to be Pixie who gets to the double damage rune first, trying to land a shackle shot onto King Crush, but it's a little bit off the mark. Now with that double damage rune in effect, he's going to right click him down, having eaten a laser to start things off, but it's going to be the courier that walks up and is almost intercepted, but King Crusher staying focused and staying on target. Instead opts to laser down and right click down the Wind Ranger, who still had the double damage rune, but double damage does not make you immortal, as the Tinker proved there, and secured himself first blood. Taking a look at the last hits, you have Juggernaut leading the charge here with 17 last hits. Coming in second, you have the quiet but deadly MYJY hanging out in the jungle. And as I mentioned during the original draft of these two lineups, which I'm not sure if that's going to make it into the YouTube cut or not, I'm currently favoring Aberzombie and Lich if the game goes late, but Team Linkens for their early and specifically their mid-game potential, because in the early game potential, MYJY is sacrificing lane presence on his team by jungling. So he's going to be relatively slow to have an impact in. So far, it's providing somewhat of a lead here, except for Morphine, who is getting effectively zoned out entirely in this top lane. He's trying to get close, he's trying to at least leech some of that experience, but he has 0 last hits to his name 4 minutes into the game. The sharing that stat only with the Disruptor and the Omni Knight. So not where you want to be if you're an offlaner. He's now under the protection of his tower, trying to fight his tower for a last hit, and there he goes. He's finally on the board, 4.5 minutes in. So his farm is going to be incredibly late, mistiming the right click there against the catapult, while in the background Thorg is doing some creep pull mechanics. I don't think he got the stack. He must have gotten the stack pull off. Yep. Because that creep wave got destroyed? No, it's half there, so I think they he just did a single creep camp pull. But now he's gonna go back to trading right clicks with the Faceless Void and looking to zone him out. Morphine using the retooled Time Walk to backtrack some of the damage that he absorbed there in the last 2 seconds. So getting rid of at least one of those Thunder Strike pulses, as well as a little bit of that right click damage.
All wands will break.
Darkseer in the offlane, still able to find himself some farm, even though he's working into a defensive tri-lane here by just tossing out those ion shells. They did increase the cost of those shells, but with the soul ring, he's going to be able to keep that up pretty much continuously. And he's picked up his next couple items here, opting to skip over the boots and head straight into building a mechanism. So that to me indicates that they are going to be looking to push this game as quickly as possible. Pixie picking up the top rune and calling out to the Darkseer to intercept bot rune, which is excellent teamwork, excellent control of the runes on the side of Team Linkens. Tinker can be very devastating with the laser heat-seeking missile combination. And you can see he did opt to slow down his points into laser and max out March of the Machines, so he's going to be going for a pushing strategy here. What I'd like to see him do as well to make use of this March of the Machines is stack one or both of these camps if he can, anytime the creep waves push beyond the river and kind of gets into the dire high ground area. Like right now, he was just kind of hanging out here in the side. None of these creeps are in jeopardy of dying really, so he could have walked down here and pulled that at the 7-minute mark and gotten a stack for himself for later on. So then what you can do is you can tap both of these creep lines and just burn them down with March of the Machines. Little plays like that, try to maximize your farm as much as possible. Dabbles, meanwhile, has finished the buckler, picked up the ring of regen, and just piece by piece working to get the mechanism as quickly as possible. He did throw an ion shell onto the melee creep, and Omni Knight opted to get rid of that by repelling the opposing creep, which did remove the ion shell buff, and he's doing it once again. So not really saving mana for the purification, for the heal nuke, but he doesn't really need it. The 8-minute stack trying to be built up by Terrorblade, but doesn't quite make it. And he's going to have stacks in place though, so he's kind of rotated into the jungle here to find some farm for himself and forfeited the lane to his supports, which isn't that bad of a call. You're going to want Omni Knight to get his level 6 at a fairly decent timing, just so he's ready to help defend the team if they opt to stage a massive defense or dive into enemy territory. But 8 minutes into the game, we still only have the 1 kill coming out from the mid lane. Tinker was the first to make it onto the board, and since then it's been pretty casual. Lifestealer has hit level 6 and went over to the Ancients and picked himself up an Ancient Golem. He's got the spell immunity, he's got the health aura, and now he's just going to look to march down this lane, so sitting on about 2k HP. Trying to chase down the Omni Knight, and Team Linkens is rotating in mass to this bottom lane. You can see all 5 heroes down here now, so they've just forfeited the rest of the lanes. They've tossed the Ion Shell onto the Golem, and right now Omni Knight's all alone, so he needs to be very careful that he doesn't get caught in a vacuum or a shackle shot here. But Pixie being level 6 hits the focus fire, and Omni Knight jumping into the jungle, repelling himself and teleporting to the fountain. I think Thorg had a chance there. With just the level 2 repel, I think there was a very brief window there where they might have been able to land the glimpse, but it doesn't matter. They're not really there to kill an Omni Knight anyway. They're there to take a tier 1 tower and maybe more, and that's exactly what they've done so far. They're looking to continue to push in the top lane here. You have Dazzle, whose TP's on cooldown, so he's not going to be able to join. Faceless Void doesn't have one. Terrorblade trying to push forward himself in the mid lane. He doesn't have a TP scroll, so this is going to be a tier 2 tower in the bot lane, just dead to rights. And as I was checking out inventories there, I missed the Juggernaut surging forward to the Omni Knight, who likely was under the assumption that his team was going to defend the tier 2 tower at the 10-minute mark, which is what you need to be doing, but there's no one in position, no one with the equipment ready to make that rotation and help them, so that's 2 towers at 10 minutes going the way of Team Linkens. So a very quick gold infusion, you can see as it's updating there, getting to about 4k. I was gonna say, these aren't kills, are they? But nope, it's the first kill coming out from Tinker. Juggernaut evening the board up later on with the kill against Omni Knight and the 2 towers.
Is under attack.
Relatively calm in terms of kills, but relatively aggressive in terms of lane aggression coming out from Team Linkens here. I expect to see them kind of regroup and perform that same strategy here in the mid lane. While they were pushing bot, the Terrorblade was able to finish off that mid tower, and then he rotated into the jungle to continue to farm up. And this is where Tinker's power is going to be able to shine. He has finished his Boots of Travel. He's gotten a point into the arm. He's level 10, so he's going to be looking to bounce between base and the middle lane here, but the shackle shot being landed against Omni Knight and Terrorblade. Terrorblade running deep into enemy territory. He just now got enough mana to ult and life swap Dabbles, who's going to run to the back of his lineup. He's going to make it out alive. Terrorblade not so lucky. He falls here, and Team Linkens putting up a good fight here, just kind of standing their ground, even underneath the tower. Lifestealer still hanging out in that Ancient Golem, providing the life aura to his team, and as a result, it's going to force back the AZ+L lineup after they claimed the second kill of this middle lane in the form of Omni Knight. But the fight's not over yet as Terrorblade rotates in once again. Lifestealer still hanging out in the front lines here. Power shot landing on, it looked like all 3 heroes, maybe 4. And Lifestealer just not caring who's hanging out by the tower. He's willing to absorb all the damage. He's still sitting in that Ancient Golem with 8 armor, 2,000 HP. There's just not enough damage on the side of AZ+L yet to do any significant damage to that Ancient Crate. So they're forced to rotate heroes in and out. Now you see Terrorblade's scrolls on cooldown. I think, yep, Faceless Void's scroll is on cooldown. And Team Linkens is back into the middle lane doing what they can. They're having to work through March of the Machines, so you can see their heroes falling back. Disruptor taking quite a bit of damage. Almost eating Heat-Seeking Missile, which would have been devastating, but is not one of the closest 2 heroes. There's that glimpse I was talking about before. It is going to get the Dazzle killed?
Beset on all sides.
I don't think he actually
Radiant's
got
middle tower
glimpsed. I think he
has
actually fell before
fallen.
he got glimpsed back to the team lineup. And they're continuing to push here. They're eating quite a bit of damage in the form of those missiles and that March of the Machine. The Golem dropping to about a third of its HP at this point, but it's constantly ion shelled. The spell immunity from it
be drawing nigh?
is granting it protection from the repel from Omni Knight,
Radiant's
I
middle
believe.
tower is under attack.
And so he's able to get that ion shell, but Lifestealer gives it up, and he instead steals the Radiant side Ancient Golem, refreshing that health pool to about 2k. They opt not to push into the tier 2 tower, and it looks like now they're going to rotate into the top lane and try to push down the last remaining AZ+L tier 1 tower. Meanwhile, you have multiple heroes kind of hanging out in the jungle. You have the two supports protecting the Terrorblade here, trying to make sure he gets as much farm as he can during this brief lull. The Yasha recipe has been picked up. I don't know that he has... Nope, it doesn't look like he has all the components to it quite yet. But meanwhile, in the top lane, Morphine jumping forward. This is what I talked about. Tossing out that Chronosphere, but he eats quite a bit of damage inside of the Static Storm from Disruptor. It was also blocked off by Kinetic Field, so like Omni Knight wasn't able to like rotate around or anything like that. And after he ate a fair amount of damage, the rest of his looks like, yep, Omni Knight's going to have to head back to base. Faceless Void doesn't have his ult. He's sitting at about half health, half mana. And at this point, it's King Crush who's going to have to carry the weight of this team for the time being. I'd say for the next 15 minutes, Tinker's going to have to provide split push, base defense, and just keep those March of the Machines rolling as much as possible. Kill the enemy creep wave, keep the enemy heroes at bay, and eventually what'll happen is your Terrorblade here, who's going to continue to farm, he's going to continue to get that solo experience, that solo gold, will start to out-carry the split farm, the split experience that Juggernaut and Lifestealer have to share amongst the team. Omni Knight trying to stage a defense here, but it looks like they're ultimately going to let this tower go. Tinker's teleporting in, but it's going to be too late. He throws out a missile. He and Omni Knight both try to secure the last hit on the tower, but it's not going to be there in time. Omni Knight sticking around a little bit too long. He's going to get glimpsed and dropped, and now the chase is on to finish off a second kill here against the Dazzle. Ancient Golem kind of just lumberjacking his way forward, doesn't have a ton of move speed, so he's not able to catch up, not able to make that Ion Shell tick. So Dazzle is able to escape, so it's a 1-for-0 trade. What started off as a 1-0 lead for AZ+L has switched hands right now, and this is the pushing potential of the mid-game lineup I referred to from Team Linkens, where we're 20 minutes into the game, and right now they are going to be stronger just with how quickly all of their heroes come online and how quickly they're able to push and make use of some of their skills. On the other side of the map, you have heroes that are much more item dependent and farm dependent. So the later this game goes on, the more likely it is you'll see the tables start to turn. And speaking of tables, taking a look at the net worth chart, there was that 10-minute dip to about, what was it, 4k? It's since doubled another 10 minutes in to about 8k at the 20-minute mark, but a lot of that's in the form of tower gold, which you can easily recover if you're AZ+L. Eventually you're going to be pushing the outer towers from Team Linkens, and you'll recover that same gold that they were able to secure in the first 20 minutes of the game. You can see here King Crusher making use of this brief pause in action and pushing the top lane. it does look like this tower is going to get denied, so that is going to cost them a bit of gold, assuming Team Linkens realizes it. But they're just teleporting all their heroes in. Once the whole team's in place, then they drop the tower.
Dire's top tower has been
And the chase is on. So they're looking to take the second tier 2 of the game here. The Black Dragon has been picked up, so you'll see some even stronger push potential coming out from him. He has the splash attack, the fireball damage. This is the ancient creep you want to see if you're Lifestealer. Oh! Juggernaut getting caught in a chronosphere. He's ultimately going to be dropped by the Tinker. It was Faceless Void who leapt in on him and provided that right-click damage, but he was ultimately glimpsed away. And Tinker finishing the drill there instead of the March of the Machines, the laser, and the missile. So they do secure the tower. Pixie was rocking double damage for the duration of that fight, as well as the new ancient creep to their lineup, the ancient Black Dragon. You can see there's another one waiting for him here. So he's going to be ready to
Dire's bottom tower is under
jump
attack.
into the Radiant side if his dragon does eventually fall.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
The double ion shell push. Wind Ranger sitting, she has finished her Aghanim Scepter with that quick gold infusion. What you need to be careful of is that you don't let them snowball too much out of control. Seeing the top lane, King Crusher continuing to push these off lanes. You have Terrorblade continuing to farm. But it's Pixie who's right-clicking down this tower, and they're able to secure it. So that's all outer towers lost from AZ+L. It's going to be increasingly difficult for them to keep control of the map, keep control of the game. AZ+L need to realize that with this level of aggression, there are going to be a lot of aggressive wards coming out from Team Linkens, so they need to be mindful of that. Their supports are going to be insanely poor. It's unfortunate, but it's just how the game has to be played for them, and you can see they've already invested pretty significantly into sentry wards, and they're going to try to place them around the perimeter of their base and secure themselves some element of map control. But while they do that, it's Team Linkens jumping into the Roche pit, dropping Roche real quick, and then rotating out. Juggernaut, the recipient of the Aegis here at the beginning. He has finished the Battle Fury. He's got a Blade of Alacrity. We'll see if he turns that into an Ags or a Manta style, whatever the case may be. Taking a look at items overall here. You can see a few items starting to come online. Dabbles has finished his Mechanism. Pixie, as I mentioned before, has finished the Aghanim Scepter. Battle Fury in place on Syntax, the Juggernaut, and Lifestealer slowly working his way towards what appears to be a Radiance, and I suspect he's not too far from it. Yep, he just needs to finish off the recipe at this point. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, you have Tinker, who's finished his Boots of Travel and Blink Dagger, so he's mobile. He's going to be able to push and split push and defend with as much security as you can get as a Tinker, so there's always the potential for people to be lurking in the shadows. But like here in the bot lane, for example, if you look at their vision, he should be able to teleport to one of these creeps, blink down here into the woods, throw out some marches, rearm, blink further in, or blink further back depending on who shows up, like the Juggernaut, and then teleport back home to safety. Any other major items over on the Radiant side? You got the Vlads on Morphine. I keep wanting to call him Morphling, but it's Morphine, who's playing Faceless Void.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
So, Vlad's in place on him. I think that's a good pickup. He's not going to be able to do a ton of right-click damage
Dire's
himself.
top tower is
So
under
the
attack.
strategy so far is very much for Protect 1. A lot of the game's going to rest in the hands of this Terror Blade. It's going to be a heavy load for him to carry, but if the Tinker can continue to make space and the Void continues to build into auras for him, the supports continue to armor him up, heal him up, provide him with shallow graves and the repels that he needs, he should be able to confidently get off his ultimate anytime he needs to. They're able to defend high ground here without much
Can
difficulty.
its end be drawing nigh?
You can see Team Linkens realizing that time is against them. It's 25 minutes in here. I missed the kill on the Juggernaut there. Oh, it's just the Aegis, but I missed that. So they did burn the Aegis in that first uphill push. He still has his Omni Slash, so all heroes having their ultimate with the exception of Dazzle. That'll be up in no time here. And Team Linken's just trying to slow siege this middle lane. But the problem with slow sieging is this right here. You can see this constant barrage of March the Machines coming out from Tinker. He's going to have no problem keeping this up indefinitely. And the dire creeps just aren't able to make it through. You combine that with the illusions from Terrorblade, and I think it's going to be near impossible for these creeps to make it uphill so long as Tinker's in position. That march a little bit early, but he's getting the second one out here, and it's going to cut this creep wave down very quickly, and it's going to force this creep equilibrium to be right around here, right outside of the Radiant base. And while it's out there, they can't do anything to the towers. You can see Lifestealer trying. He's jumping forward. He's trying to get him there. Dabbles with a Blink Dagger now, blinking forward, trying to get a big vacuum wall off. He's not able to secure too much damage there, and it's met with a Chronosphere as he jumps onto Syntax and the Disruptor. Now the chase is on towards the Wind Ranger. He has popped the Wind Run, so she's going to be pretty elusive here, as there is no MKB on any of the core heroes from AZ+L. But Tinker blinking forward is able to secure a kill against Juggernaut, and now it's the Disruptor trying to blink away. They're pinging out the Granite Golem. They want to drop this Lifestealer. They know he's been a nuisance. He's working his way towards the Ancients up here. His creep ultimately dies. He enrages, and then he jumps forward into yet another Black Dragon. He's going to try to make it out, but this dragon falling much faster than the first. Lucky Bash coming out from the Faceless Void as he finishes off the Ancient Black Dragon, and then all 5 heroes continue to chase on to MYJY, and Tinker once again walking away with the kill. Lifestealer in good spirits throughout that chase though. Throws out an LOL in all chat. Apologies here, have a few different alerts going off. And now we're starting to hit that tipping point where you can see they tried to slow siege that. Where? And I'm missing a bunch of kills here as Tinker's able to kill Disruptor once again. And it looked like it was in the bottom lane, so it must have been just on the tail end of one of the March of the Machines. I don't think he had time to. I think Tinker was already in base by the time that kill was announced. So the double march coming out, clearing out the creep wave in the bottom lane. Pixie on the side of Team Linkens trying to keep that creep equilibrium heading towards the Radiant side of the map. But
Radiant's middle tower
Tinker's
is under
playing
attack.
Visa right now. He's everywhere you want to be. Pushing the bot lane, jumping forward, or jumping back to base, rearming, pushing top. He's now level 16. He has 3 points into his ult. He's actually picked up the Dagon, so he's going to be looking to drop
Dial's
enemy
top
heroes
tower
here.
is under attack.
And here's Dabble poking his head out, and you can see real quickly there, he just gets deleted from the map, as it is a level 4 Dagon in combination with the missiles and the laser. That's going to be a ton of damage coming out. That's what, 320, 350, so that's 700 plus another 1700.
Blinded you with
And then,
Dial's poor
just
top
like
tower.
that, Tinker
Can its
sitting
end
back
be
in base
drawing
does get another
nigh?
kill. As the top tower is dropped to 17 HP. And Disruptor just eating a ton of damage as he
Enjoy
tries to
yourself
walk
while
through
you
these
can,
March of the
for Dial's
Machines.
top tower has
Tinker
fallen.
teleporting back to the top lane is going to secure the kill for himself, but eats a big Omni Slash in return for it, and that's 800 gold into the pocket of the Juggernaut. Putting an end to his monster kill streak here, but that's space and time bought for the Terrorblade, who's continuing to farm here. He has the 2 ultimate orbs as he builds his way towards the Scotty, so he's also sitting on about 1200 gold, so that's nearly complete here. And I think Team Linkens have about 5 minutes left here on their clock, and you kind of get that sense as they push forward in the middle lane here. MYJY not finding a creep that he likes, just clears out the creeps in the Radiant Ancient stack and is waiting for the respawn there as the rest of his team jump forward. Morphine leaping forward is catching 3 of them in a Chronosphere. He gets glimpsed back by the Disruptor, who was hanging out in the backlines at a very good distance. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a Disruptor. When you have 4 points into your glimpse, that range is pretty massive. So you can afford to hang back quite a ways. You can see here at the typical view, it's pretty much the entire map. I shouldn't say the entire map, but it's your visible range of the map as you're playing Disruptor. So just hang back as far as you can and save your allies anytime they fall into harm's way. And now it's AZ+L looking to progress their agenda as they smoke up, and they're going to send the Ancients apparently towards the Roshan pit, but it's going to be scouted out by this roaming Ancient creep, which has been occupied by the Lifestealer. And they're rotating some illusions in there, hopefully trying to bait some of the Team Linkens lineup into the Rosh pit. They did catch a glimpse that Roshan is up, so they know that Aegis is available. Right now, both teams just kind of hanging out and being mindful of that pit. While the Tinker farms up some of the stacks, I'd like to see Terrorblade actually use this time a bit more productively and find some creeps of his own. They're being half stolen by the Tinker there, who leaves the jungle and heads to the top lane. He lasers down the catapult even and just tossing machines everywhere. He's picked up the Ghost Scepter, so he pops it just for good measure in case someone was lurking in the jungle. Syntax is nearby, but not too close. Speaking of Syntax, he's finished off his Sanj and Yash, taking a look at net worth. He's trying to keep up with the Terrorblade, and in fact he is slightly above him, but it's Tinker on the back of his multiple kills. He's sitting at what, 8-1 right now, so he has every kill on the team. I knew he was getting quite a few kills. I did not realize it was every single one. So he's currently leading in net worth. And that's what has allowed him to finish off that Dagon level 5 relatively quickly in conjunction with all of his other items. And Team Linkens head into the Rosh pit here. This had to have been seen. Yeah, this was definitely seen. by the AZ+L lineup, but they're just not in position to do
Dire
anything
have
about it.
stolen
Instead, they're pushing
Roshan's
the top
life,
lane.
and with it, immortality.
That Dazzle stacking some of the neutral camps for Syntax by the looks of things as he rotates into the enemy jungle here. And unfortunately, that's going to be some lost time, some lost economy.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Apologies for the alerts here, guys. I'm going to
The Dire's poor
pause
top
that
tower.
quickly.
Can its end be drawing nigh?
If I can get to it.
Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under
There we
attack. Radiant's middle tower has
Alright,
fallen.
apologies. Meanwhile, while I'm taking care of some
Is empty.
work on the sides there in the middle lane, you had Wind Ranger get caught out in the Chronosphere and ultimately dropped, this time by Terrorblade, so somebody else has a kill. And Omni Knight picks up his first kill of the game, dropping the Darkseer, as the team does get vacuumed into a wall, but they don't seem to mind. They just work through the pain. And now they're eyeballing this Ancient Creep like they want to drop it as well. The mid-tier 3 tower has dropped. You can see these two supports and the Faceless Void going to town on the Ancient. They're eventually going to be able to drop it here, but it's in the front lines. Terrorblade taking on the Disruptor. He's going to be dropped by Syntax, who's doing a fair amount of damage. MYJY popping into and out of creeps, getting some kills, dropping the Tinker, who was under the protection of Ghost Scepter. And this could very well be at least one, if not two lanes of Rax, as the Terrorblade does buy back into the game immediately. Omni Knight's going to be able to get away from Lifestealer with just a sliver of health, and now we'll see how farmed the Terrorblade is, as he's going to have to stand up to the two cores from Team Linkens, MYJY and Syntax. He gets his Sunder off at just the right time. Omni Knight teleporting 15 feet forward to protect his hard carry, who's bought back with the ultimate. And he eventually falls to Pixie, so there's no more protection left for Terrorblade, whose repel is starting to run out. He pops some illusions and sets their focus onto Syntax, who eats a fair amount of damage but dabbles as Synth joined up with the rest of his allies. Gets them with a mechanism heal, and now there's a slight mischance still coming out from Lifestealer, hopefully keeping his teammates alive through the entirety of the Chronosphere, and it does. So Syntax is alive for just a brief moment longer, but he does have the Aegis, so he'll be back in the game in just a second there, eating a ton of nuke damage from Tinker, but it doesn't matter how much damage he eats, even if he falls here. They got what they came for. They got that middle Rax. So I think that was an excellent push by them. They had to make something happen. At the end of the day, the Dota 2 recap's not going to show much, but we all know that the cost of battle there was definitely worth it, and the net worth chart is showing it. They lost a few kills. This time it's Disruptor getting the kill against Tinker. I presume most of that damage had to be coming out from Pixie, and then Disruptor just being the lucky beneficiary of that last hit, as Tinker tried to keep the aggression going from his team and the space created for his team. So one lane of Rax down so far on the Radiant side of the map. The game's by no means over. They can definitely stand up to some of the super creeps, but I feel if they lose the second lane in the next 5 minutes or so, as Team Linkens is hoping to make happen here as they group up to push top, that could be quite devastating. And there's not going to be really many buybacks at all. You can see the entire Radiant side either doesn't have the gold to buy back, or in the case of Omni Knight and Terrorblade, who both tried to make that defensive stance in the mid, their buybacks are on cooldown. Now it's Pixie leading the charge for Team Linkens, setting her targets on the middle racks here. Morphine jumping forward, catching Wind Ranger inside of that Chronosphere, but he gets glimpsed back immediately, while Syntax dives behind enemy lines and gets a pick off against the two supports. Now they turn to focus Omni Knight. That's not going to be there, and it's Terrorblade trying to stand his ground. He's able to drop the Disruptor, but ultimately gets killed off by the Wind Ranger as Tinker steps forward and lets her have a piece of the Dagon. But she's not afraid of no ghost. She's hanging out, regenning as much as she can with the bottle, and with the remainder of her allies, most of which sitting at half health, they're going to continue to push this top racks down. And there goes the second lane of racks. And at this point, I think AZ+L is going to be trapped inside of a box. They were able to buy some space while they still had their barracks up, but with the two effective pushes coming out from Team Linkens, and I'm not sure how their strength exploded quite so much. Lifestealer's still sitting inside of those creeps, so he's not making a ton of use from his items, but the Juggernaut has finished off the Iascati. Daedalus in position for Pixie, so both of those adding some significant damage. Thorg has picked up the Aghanim Scepter, and on the support you have the Mechanism and Pipe of Insight on Dabbles, who's playing quite a bit of a support role despite being the solo offlane. So in terms of kills, despite me missing quite a few of them, most of the Tinker kills, I should just kind of keep the camera on follow. On the Tinker, as he has the vast majority of the team's kills still sitting at 8. Despite me missing those, there hasn't been much damage here, and it's Pixie and Thorg catching out Morphine as he tries to get some farm back into his pocket in the jungle. And with Chronosphere being sidelined here for the next 50 seconds, he's not going to have buyback anytime soon. They're going to be able to take this fight fairly easily, I feel. Tinker is teleporting back to base. Dazzle trying to reduce the army of the incoming Team Linkens lineup, but I don't think the Lifestealer really cares. He ultimately sacrifices that Ancient Creep and is just kind of body blocking the entire AZ+L lineup while the rest of his team plays objective Dota. They do lose the Disruptor, but Disruptor catching 3 heroes out inside of a perfectly positioned Kinetic Field and Static Storm is going to allow Syntax to get himself a triple kill as he cleaves through the entire Radiant lineup, and now it's GG. GG is called. They're focusing on the tier 4 towers here, but they won't need to go through the extra effort of slicing and dicing those down. They needed that mid-racks, and that right there is what saved them. It was about 35 minutes into the game, 30 to 35 minutes in. It was just starting to get to that tipping point where Tinker was starting to run out of control. He was 8-0, 8-1, teleporting around, just a laser beaming down between the Dagon, the missiles, and the laser itself, picking off whichever hero he wanted at will, practically. Terrorblade was able to find some successful farm. You can see even being on the losing team here, he had the highest CS in the game with 318 last hits, 462 gold per minute, keeping on pace even with Pixie, who had the benefit of all of those extra towers, all of those extra racks. So he was able to find farm. Faceless Void had some decent Chronospheres. He had a couple bad ones. He was fighting into a Disruptor, and I think the hero choice there may have been not the most ideal. you can't really do much inside of that chronosphere. Against the Disruptor, he's going to be able to control you, and that's exactly what Thorg did throughout every team fight initiation. He was glimpsing Faceless Void out of the bubble. He was throwing down kinetic fields. You saw there at the very end, he landed that amazing 3-hero kinetic field, Static Storm, and put the final nail in the coffin as Team Linkens grouped up quite effectively from the 35 to 40 minute mark, and were able to secure both mid and top racks, and eventually secure themselves game 1 in this best of 2 series between AberZombie and Lich and Team Linkens. My name is Darmin. I've been casting to you live from twitch.tv/DarminCast. If you like my nonsense, please hit that follow button down below. I would greatly appreciate it. And stay tuned, as we will be back for game 2 between these two teams. Alright, I'll see you back here in just a minute.